Good morning, all of you.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, class 8. The others are listening. Good morning, all of you.
Good morning, ma'am.
All are so sleepy. Okay, so today we will start with a new chapter in history. Chapter number 6 in your books, Attempts to Civilize and Educate the Native. Open the books to that page. Attempts to Civilize and Educate the Native. Found the chapter? Yes, class. Are you able to find the chapter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll start. Now, by this time, the Britishers have already established their rule over two-thirds of this Indian subcontinent, and now they thought, and they have also consolidated their power. So now they turn their attention towards teaching Indians, educating Indians, and also civilizing them. Because according to the Britishers, the Indian peoples were uncivilized people. They were not civilized, they did not know how to live a proper civilized life. So they thought that they will civilize the Indians, educate the Indians also, and so that they'll be able to change their customs as well as values in order that they will be more supportive of the British rule in India. But that was easily said than done. So it took the Britishers many years to make a policy on education, and what that policy was and how it affected the Indians and how the Indians reacted to that policy, all that we will see during the course of this chapter. So first we'll study about the Orientalist in this matter. Now the term Orientalist, it first came into use in France in the 1830s, and now since then this word Orientalism is used in various ways to represent. Now it is used to represent many things, like a particular type of romantic fantasy literature, or a particular type of architecture and painting, and also a particular type of uh, teaching or education, ideological education of the East. So the West understood the education of the East, or the architecture of the East, or the literature of the East, and called it Orientalism. Now, the father of Orientalism was William Jones, and he arrived in Calcutta in 1783 as a judge of the Calcutta Supreme Court, and he started a proper system of study of Indian classical languages. And now, though he was a judge, okay, so now though he was a judge, but he was also a linguist, means he knew many languages and had a keen interest in the study and development and promotion of various languages. And he had studied Greek and Latin at Oxford, and he knew French and also English. And now William Jones, he discovered that Sanskrit had a connection with the European group of languages. So he said that the Indian language Sanskrit, it had a connection with the European languages, and this greatly surprised and shocked the scholars of Europe when he said that Sanskrit had some connections with the European languages. And so soon he was studying Indian texts on law, philosophy, religion, politics, medicine, and also on the other sciences. Now, Jones discovered that his interest in the Indian languages and literature, it was shared by other British officials also living in Calcutta at that time. So he had some supporters in the form of Nathaniel Halhed, Charles Wilkins, Henry T. Coolbrooke, and they also joined him with all their skill in the study and promotion of Indian languages and literature. And the platform which they established for all their activities was the Asiatic Society of Calcutta, and this Jones has founded in 1784. And together they also started a journal called as the Asiatic Researchers, in which they wrote about what they found about the Indian languages and literature, what interesting, what new they found on it. And so in while pursuing this Oriental knowledge, Henry T. Coolbrooke, now he is said to be a true successor of William Jones. And now though Jones founded the Asiatic Society of Bengal, but it was Coolbrooke who built its superstructure, gave it a great form, and made it a great center of Oriental study in the East. Now Coolbrooke, he worked as an assistant collector of revenue, so he was employed in the revenue section, and he collected revenue. So he was the assistant collector at Tirhut, and while working there, he developed an interest in the study of Sanskrit language. Now Charles Wilkins is said to have initiated him into this Sanskrit studies, and now though until 1801, Coolbrooke, he wanted to study Sanskrit more for economic inquiries, making economic inquiries rather than anything else, because you know he was involved with revenue and money matters and all, so he was more interested in that. But later on he turned his wholehearted attention to the Sanskrit studies, and then in the Asiatic Researchers in the journal, he frequently wrote articles on the Hindu religion, caste, law, customs, and so on. Now Coolbrooke, he also wrote on the Vedas, the Sanskrit grammar, algebra, arithmetic, astronomy, and geography. And so you know he studied so much, had a deep knowledge of the Sanskrit language, and studied so much here. And for the Fort William College, Coolbrooke also edited the Amarkosa. It was a Sanskrit dictionary. Now if any person is editing the dictionary, so obviously he would have a great knowledge of that particular subject, and so he edited the Amarkosa Sanskrit dictionary in 1808. And now his work as a prominent Orientalist and scientist, it earned him many felicitations and commemorations from Royal Society also during his lifetime. Means he received a lot of praise and applaud for his work. Now Jones and Coolbrooke, they not only discovered the text and studied them, but they also spread their message to others. And message to others means to the British officials living here and to the Indians, because they thought that it will help both the Indians as well as the Britishers. How? That the former means the Britishers, they will learn about the Indian culture, and the Indians will also come to know about their past which they have forgotten. And so a madrasa was built in Calcutta in 1781, and this school was to promote the study of Arabic, Persian, and Islamic law. Then in 1791, the Hindu college was set up in Benares, and this was to study, to encourage the study of ancient Sanskrit texts. But all British officials did not support this view, and many strongly criticized the opinions or the views of the Orientalists, and this set of people were called as the Anglicists, means those who supported the promotion of English language and literature, or the Western language and literature. Now the Orientalist vision, it was criticized by many British officials, and why they criticized this? Because they thought that that the knowledge of the East, means this knowledge of East including India and all, it was full of errors and it was unscientific, means it was not based on research and science and technological advancement, and they thought that also it was full of errors, not based on reason, unscientific. And so they thought that it was not right on the part of the Britishers to spend so much money and effort on the promotion of Arabic and Sanskrit language and literature, because they thought it was full of errors and unscientific also. Now, one of the people who attacked the Orientalists or was a prominent Anglicist, he was James Mill. And the British effort, he said that the Britishers should put their effort and money not on what the natives, means the local people, they wanted, and he thought that the aim of education should be to teach what is useful and practical. He wanted the education should be useful and practical, and he said that because of that, the Indians, they should be made familiar with the advancement that the West has made. And because the West, according to him, the West has made more advancement in the field of science and literature and history, all right. And so he thought that the Indians, they should be made familiar with the technical advancement that the West has made, rather than spending time and effort and money on the study of the literature of the East. And so by the 1830s, the attacks on the Orientalists, they grew stronger. Now another prominent Anglicist, Thomas Babington Macaulay, he saw India, he thought that India was an uncivilized country and it needed to be civilized, and he thought that it was good for India itself that the admission of natives to high office might be effected. He thought that since the Indian people did not have the knowledge of science and reason, and so they should be employed or promoted to high posts in administration and other fields by slow degrees, not all of a sudden. And he recommended that English should be made the medium of instruction in schools as well as the lingua franca. Now what that means is that if the people are having many languages, so you choose one language to be the common language of communication among other people. And so he recommended that English should be made both as the medium of instruction and also as the lingua franca, or the common language in which the people conversed or communicated. Now Macaulay's speech, the most quoted words are that what he said: a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. So he gave a lot of importance to the study of Western literature and languages, and thought that only one shelf of good English library or European library was worth much more than all the literature of India and Arabia. And so he urged the Britishers to stop spending money on the promotion of Oriental language, because he thought that it was of no practical use. And Macaulay, he opted for English because he thought that it has the proper vocabulary also for teaching the modern science and philosophy and law and history. And he said that though the Oriental language, it did a great in the field of poetry, but but poetry, he said, according to him, poetry is the work of imagination and feelings and emotions. So he said, but when you move from imagination to the works of facts, science, or general principles being investigated, then at that time the superiority of European languages, they became absolutely necessary. So while you are writing about poetry and all that, then in that Oriental language is okay, but when you are talking about science and principles being investigated, then the study of English language, it is much more as compared to the study of the Oriental languages and literature. And so he thought that in time English might come to be supplanted at least in part by tongues indigenous to India. So he thought that with time English will be accepted as one of the languages which were spoken by people in India. And basically he said that when the Indian people, they the Indian section of people who have received education and knowledge of the English literature and languages and the European languages, then what they would do, they would refine the vernacular dialects of the country. Now vernacular dialects are the local languages which are spoken by the people in a particular area. So he thought that when the Indian scholars, they will study properly the British or the European languages and literature, then they would refine the local languages also here, and this they will do with the terms, the scientific terms which are used in Western nomenclature. Nomenclature is a system of giving names or a system of names. So he thought that when the Indian people, they will become scholars enough and knowledgeable enough, then they will use words of English language also with words which are used in Western nomenclature to refine the local languages which were spoken by the people here, and through that they will be able to spread the knowledge and education to vast number of people. And something like this happened also because far from being destroyed, the vernacular languages, they flourished during the colonial times also, because of the emergence of the printing press, the advent or the coming of the printing press. And now according to Macaulay, he emphasized the need to teach English language as it would allow Indians to read the finest literature in the world. So he thought that if the Indians would study the English language and literature, then they would be able to read the finest literature in the world also, and it would make people learn about the Western science and philosophy. And so, and he also thought that the teaching of English, it will also change the people values and tastes and culture, and it would civilize the Indians and make them more supportive of the British rule in India. And as a result of that, English was to become, according to the English Education Act of 1835 was introduced, and according to it, the English language was to become the medium of instruction or the medium of teaching in the higher education. And so they were promoted, and the Oriental institutions like the Calcutta Madrasa and the Benares Sanskrit College, they were demoted. And now the school textbooks also began to be printed in English language. But Christian missionaries, they criticize the promotion of practical education more, because they thought that to change or to improve the moral character of the people should get Christian education as compared to simple practical education. And so with that view in mind, William Carey, who was a Scottish missionary, he helped to establish the Serampore mission. And so Serampore College was established in 1818, and during the 19th century, missionary schools sprang up in many parts of the country to impart moral education to the people. Okay, so understood till here, all of you? Any questions? Class 8?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Alright, understood properly? Sure? Be a little loud. So dull you people are sounding. Yes, class 8. Wahib? Srishti? Yes, Janvi. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright. Okay, so I think this will be all for today, and you can go through it go through the Orientalists and the Anglicists today.